Hey guys, it's Poxbro. Welcome back to another video. Today in Fallout 76, I'm going to be doing a guide on the best legendary effects for weapons as of the 3-star update. So I think later this December we're getting 4 stars, so this video might change then. But just for now, I'm going to be making this guide. This video guide will still be somewhat relevant when the 4 stars come out, except, for that additional 4th star, there will be like a best 4-star. But for the 3 stars, I'm going to go ahead and go over it, and I'll go ahead and show you guys like some more specific examples. But right now, I'll talk about the general things. Let's go ahead and start with prefixes, and prefixes is pretty much like the 1-star effects, and they're usually the stronger effects for weapons. The best for damage and like DPS hands down, and if you're a Bloodied build, is the Bloodied legendary effect. So this one gives you a lot of extra damage. It's 5% damage per 5% health lost, up to 95% damage. So generally speaking, when you're a Bloodied build, you do 20% HP, 80% radiation, and so you get 80% damage from a Bloodied weapon because of how it works here. So that's a lot of damage. So in most scenarios, Bloodied is going to give you the most damage against most of the enemies. For a really tanky enemy like Earl, or I think just specifically Earl, I heard that anti-armor is going to be a better prefix against Earl. I don't know why anti-armor is not here, but essentially gives you 50% armor penetration, which is going to be the best damaging effect for non-bloodied. Another contender for anti-armor for non-bloodied is Aristocrats. And I think Aristocrats, you can squeeze out a little bit extra damage than anti-armor, but you do have to maintain that 39k cap. Or is it 29k? I think it's 29k. You pretty much have to have like 30k caps in order to have Aristocrats procced. I don't know if this is updated, but yeah. So just to review, Bloodied is best for Bloodied. Anti-armor and Aristocrats is really good for non-Bloodied users, and then two other effects that are a little bit more niche but can still be really good are 2-shot, which means like every bullet you shoot, it shoots an additional shot without consuming additional ammo. And then, but that's like more specific for a certain type of weapons it's good on. And then the same thing applies for quad, which just 4 times the magazine size essentially. And so yeah, that's also pretty good on certain weapons. So those are going to be the best legendary effects for the 1-star, or like for the main prefix. So let's move on to the 2nd and 3rd star. They're not really listed here that well, so I'm just going to go ahead and explain them. But the best 2nd and 3rd stars, depending on like what you're looking for, can be explosive. It can be 25% faster fire rate. Extra damage while aiming isn't that bad either. Then there's also faster reload speed, and then there's also 15% reduced VATS cost, and then there's also extra VATS critical damage, I believe. Pretty much there's like 2 really good VATS stats. Yeah, so VATS hit chance with less action point cost. Then I think the other one is like VATS crits do extra damage. So those are pretty much all the good ones. There's also reduced weapon weight, but those are all kind of just general. So I'll show you some of the roles that I have and like how they can apply to specific weapons. So this right here is a 1-star anti-armor, and it's not bad in terms of damage, which is why I'm keeping it because I don't have anything better. I'm a Bloodied build, so I would prefer a Bloodied one. And for like melee weapons, it would be like faster swing speed, like +1 strength maybe would be like the best stats for like melee. Generally speaking, faster swing speed is good. On a 2-handed one, I think doing the extra heavy attack damage might be pretty good as well. But generally speaking, you want to go for like the +1 strength or reduced weight, and then the faster swing speed for melee weapons. But in terms of regular weapons, an example where quad is really good is like for the Tesla rifle. Quad on a Tesla rifle gives it a lot more ammo because the original magazine size is really small. Another example of this is like the Fixer, quad is really good on. And like any weapon where you would normally be using VATS a lot on, VATS is good on, if that makes sense. So like for the Fixer, normally when people use the Fixer, they're using VATS a lot. So the VATS effects are going to be really strong. So if you had like a quad with a like 50% VATS hit chance and like a VATS reduced cost on it, like it'd be a really strong Fixer. Something like this for weapons. This is like a one of the best rolls, I would say, that you could get for a weapon. For a melee weapon, it's got faster swing speed, it's bloodied, and it's reduced weight. This would be really good for a bloodied build. If you're not bloodied, you could replace the bloodied effect with anti-armor or aristocrats, and it'd be just as good for you. On the cryolator, this is another example of quad being a good effect on the cryolator, and then this one also has faster reload, which is not too bad. This one, an example of this roll would be like anti-armor is a good effect, and it is the Gashotgun, which you do use VATS with, so the VATS effect is good, but the damage resistance while aiming is not as good. This would be an example of a decent melee weapon. The Berserker effect, the lower damage resistance increases damage dealt, is one of the worst effects in the game, but it does have the reduced weight and the power attack. But a lot of the weapon's power comes from that prefix, so because the prefix is Berserker, the overall weapon like isn't as good, if that makes sense. This is an example of a pretty good broadsider. It's got double VATS, and it's anti-armor, so this would be like an example of a good roll on a weapon. So imagine if this was a Fixer instead, or a handmade, then like those would be really good rolls for those weapons. And like anti-armor could be exchanged with Aristocrats or Bloodied. This is an example of a really good DPS weapon with the faster fire rate. So yeah, the legendary effects are all pretty good, the ones that I mentioned, but it just depends what combo you want, depending on like what you want. So if you want more utility with the VATS, then that can like help, or sometimes you want like just faster fire rate for more DPS, and that can be good too. So this is like a really good roll for a flamer, and then this is I would say like a super good roll for a plasma caster. It's bloodied with faster fire rate and has less VATS cost, so it's got all three of like the good ones that I've mentioned. So this would be an example of a good roll. This is another example of a really good roll. It's got double VATS effects and it's anti-armor, so this one is also really good. This is an example of another weapon that is not too bad. It's got the explosive effect, and explosive effect can be pretty fun to use at times, but it's also got anti-armor. And sometimes like when you're re-rolling gear, or like let's say you get a 2-star, like a 2-star can still perform pretty well. The 3rd star usually doesn't really help with DPS that much, except maybe like faster reload. But yeah, so if you get like a decent 2-star, I wouldn't worry about trying to get a 3rd star as much. But the 3rd star would just give you like some extra utility. This is another example of I guess a bad prefix. Like the 2-shot additional projectile can be a good effect, but I would say it's not as good on a shotgun in my experience, even though it does have the reduced weight and the VATS effect. So I just kept it just in case, but overall, like this one would probably be outperformed by my bloodied version or my anti-armor version. Another prefix that I forgot to mention is vampires. Vampires is really good for healing and just kind of sustaining yourself. You can have more DPS uptime because you don't have the stim pack, and it's also good if you're bloodied. You can just kind of stay alive. This is an example of a good weapon to use 2-shot on. It is a 2-shot fat man with faster fire rate. So faster fire rate doesn't really make sense on this weapon, but the 2-shot is pretty good. It pretty much shoots 2 mini nukes for the price of 1. This is Beckett's final word. I have a guide on this, so if you're interested in obtaining this weapon for free by just doing a quest line, I'll go ahead and have a link to that guide in the description. This is a really good starting heavy weapon that I highly recommend to all new heavy weapon power armor players. You get extra damage resistance while reloading, which is kind of meh, but it's a guaranteed anti-armor faster fire rate roll, which is really good DPS, especially on a 50 cal with no spin up time. So this is an example of like a pretty good weapon as well. Another prefix that I forgot to mention is junkies. Junkies can be pretty good if you're a junkies build. It's similar to Bloodied where you have to like commit to the build. But if you're a junkies, would be like an example. Like this is junkies with faster fire rate. Break slower is not very good, but Junkie's faster fire rate is pretty strong, and it is on a DPS weapon, so If a weapon generally shoots fast, then faster fire would be good on it. If a weapon doesn't shoot as fast, then you might be using VATS with it, in which case like those VATS ones will be more relevant to that weapon. So it kind of depends, but everything that I mentioned can be pretty decent on most guns and most weapons. This is an example of another good melee weapon. You get +1 strength and faster swing speed. The instigating effect, or the increased damage on consecutive hit, is okay, but anti-armor Bloodied would have been better, or Aristocrats. Another example of where quad might be good is on the LMG, so quad LMG can be pretty strong. Most of the time, 2-shot is best paired with explosive because you get like an additional explosion. So an example would be like this weapon right here, a 2-shot explosive, but it is on a revolver. Most people would opt for 2-shot explosive, like a handmade, usually like a 2-shot explosive handmade, maybe even a 2-shot explosive fixer, but most of the time fixers are used for something else, more towards VATS and quad. So, but yeah, I think I've seen 2-shot explosive handmades, probably the most common, or like maybe on a heavy weapon, like a minigun or something. But yeah, that's gonna be pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any weapon rolls that you're curious if it's good or not, you can comment below and I'll let you know my opinion on it. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please let me know in the comment section below. But otherwise, until next time.